Welcome to another episode of the Ethics Guild podcast. We have Sierra as our guest today, and we're going to delve into learning more about what makes a great art teacher, and we also want to know about property management. So stay tuned. You're going to love this episode, and let's start. Okay, so Sierra,
Hi.
first and foremost, how do you spell your name for those viewers?
Siera. So not like Sierra, it's Sierra.
Yes, guys.
Thank you.
She's been called her name she's been called the wrong way for many years. And I feel her pain because like my name is Wendell, but people call me Wendo, whatever. So I feel your pain. So I know you lately been working with kids and teaching them art. How do you see that so relevant for kids in today's era?
So yeah, I just actually started this December. I was hired as a high school ceramics teacher, which is kind of ironic because I never really did ceramics. Out of all the arts that I have done, didn't really do ceramics, but that's what they needed, and so I learned and actually went out and did a retreat and a very intense weekend of all ceramics, all things ceramics. And something that I would like to call him now my mentor taught me is you're really just teaching, you're not teaching kids or anyone. If you teach adults, children, whoever you're teaching, it's not so much that you're really teaching them how to do art, it's you're helping them become better people. And that's because working with your hands and working with something that allows you to be creative, it opens you up to getting to know yourself, really connecting with yourself, connecting with the materials that you're using, connecting with your ancestry also in a spiritual way, because pottery and ceramics is one of the oldest forms of art, if not the oldest forms of art there is. And so I think it's very relevant for kids to be able to stop doing things academic for a moment, stop using their phones, stop sleeping in class, and really just actually connect with what it is that they're doing in a creative way, which will in turn teach them to be better people.
Definitely helps their cognitive, I would say, development as well, because they start to, feel and connect that to their brains, and the workplace. That's exactly what you do every day. You also socializing. If you don't know how to do something, you probably go to the next person that knows how to do it and ask them about, hey, how do you get that? How do you mold that clay? But also, like when they come to you, Sierra, what is the most common thing they come to you for? Like when they need help, when the kids, when they start the first day they're working with clay and everything is probably like a little messy. What's the first thing they come to you like, hey, I need help with this. How do I mold this?
I would say just the specific steps, like, okay, for instance, we did pinch pots, which are like these little cups that you gradually, it starts with a ball and you gradually turn it into a cup with certain hand movements. So just teaching them the hand movements. Then if they want to add a handle, teaching them how to add the handle. Like we might talk about it and I might display and do a demo for them or show a bunch of videos, but it's not as solidified in their mind as when we do it together and like they are doing it themselves and then they're asking me, Miss, how I need help, and then I'm showing them how to do it individually. So I wish I could work with each kid individually more often. It's difficult when I have classrooms of like 30 kids, but I think each kid really needs a little bit of specific attention, one-on-one, where you're kind of not just demoing for a class but also showing them.
Yeah, that's important. Go ahead, Kev.
Yeah, I love how you demo with the kids and then you also get them that one-on-ones, because when you're learning, like, yeah, of course you could learn through a video, but you won't recognize your own mistakes throughout it. Like, you need kind of someone, like having that one-on-one teaches somebody, like, like for example with the handle, oh, you didn't pinch enough on the top to connect it at the bottom, and that's why your handle fell off when it was when it was during the drying process.
Yeah.
Like someone that just like learned from a video and not from an experienced mentor, teacher, etc. is they might not recognize their mistake as fast. Like they're gonna have to like they recognize their mistakes from failure, failure, which anybody does, right? But having a teacher, having a mentor by you, gets you past certain failure moments. And I like how you said like the teaching is like really teaching someone how to be a good person, and it's not just about teaching artwork, right?
Yeah.
It's about teaching them the everything that surrounds the artwork, like being a good person, learning about the history about it too, learning about how it goes, how certain ceramics even work. I think that's a really valuable thing to recognize as a teacher, that it's just not about the academic portion. It's about the human portion as well. Like how do you develop? I guess one of my questions to you is how do you develop your students in class to become better people by the end of their session with you?
So I do encourage also the kids to work together, to get to know each other. I always think it's strange when they're like sitting side by side to someone and like you don't know their name or you don't have their number. Like like someone's taking too long in the bathroom. I'm like, text them, let them know they gotta come back. And they're like, I don't have his number. I'm like, but you've been sitting next to him all year. Like I do try to encourage camaraderie, and just like. I'll give you an example. A kid that is not doing so well in my class, and I told him, my next step is calling your parents, giving you detention. And he's like, why would you give me detention? I'm not being disrespectful. I'm not misbehaving. I'm just not doing the work. And I'm like, you don't think being on your phone and sleeping while I'm instructing and expecting you to do work is disrespectful? It's like trying to find a way to communicate things. And then he didn't know what to say. Like I'm trying to meet these kids eye level. I don't want to be this militant, I am the teacher, you are the children kind of vibe. I give them free time, I give them space. I let them make up their work as we go. If they do the assignment, even if it's not the greatest turnout, I'm going to give them an A. I'm not here to make these kids dislike art or I don't want them to think about my class and feel like disdain or feel like, I dread going there. I want them to enjoy coming to my class. And so I try to make it an enjoyable space. I joke around with them. I speak with them individually plenty, if I feel like there might be something wrong or... and so I feel like in having that kind of, that like communicating in that way and conducting my class in that way, it makes them feel safe. It makes them feel welcome. It makes them feel accepted and loved, cared for, cared about. And I think that's kind of the first step, since I'm new, to building that trust, which I think is actually the most paramount part about being a teacher, is getting your kids to trust you and believe in you, so that when you say something to them or you ask them to do something, they respect you and they want to show up. And I think in all of that, the student is gradually becoming better versions of themselves, because they're able to come to those understandings and conclusions on their own with your guidance. And I think that will also like translate in other ways in their lives.
I like what you said, because it goes back to also the human factor in mentoring. And I love what you just said, because when you're working on something like clay, you can't see the bigger picture. It's just clay.
It's a potato.
Exactly. It looks like it has no shape until you become okay with, experimenting. That means you're becoming vulnerable to it. And as you're shaping it, your vulnerabilities are giving you some sort of knowledge to know how to maneuver around that vulnerability. And that's how you start creating something, just by putting yourself in a place where you've never been before. But you go gradually, and I think that's beautiful what you do with the kids. It's not only about, you know, I don't like you said, you don't want them to uh, make art like it's a punishment, but it's fun. It's something where you can explore yourself before you even explore the clay that you're gonna mold. Because if you're able to expose yourself, and even if the art comes out kind of like disfigured, but that's something that you through discipline were able to complete. And perhaps if you want to produce something better, guess what? You got to probably discipline yourself a little bit more to learn more.
Yeah.
And then I love what you said also about the socializing. Kids nowadays prefer to text even though they're right next to each other. They're like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Very good.
And it's so quiet. It's so quiet. Like we used to get in so much trouble for just talking and talking and talking, and now who would have ever thought as a teacher I'd be like, can y'all talk? And like get in trouble for being loud because you guys are so quiet. The whole class would just be silent. And I'm like, you guys are boring.
Boo.
Yeah, boring. Like talk to each other, you know?
I could picture Sierra just throwing paper at the kids.
Yes.
Like, you guys suck.
Yeah, you know, and so I try to I do play, you know, like I do make jokes and gun them a little bit, you know, because I think that that's how they also have, like that's their love language too. You know, my city, Elizabeth, isn't it's a rough and tumble kind of town, and I'm from here, and my love language with my friends is kind of messing around and making jokes, and so I find that also allows me to connect a little bit further when I speak in their language a little bit. You know, I'm still new, so they're getting used to me. Like something that I started doing because my shelf is next to the teacher that's been there for 13 years' shelf, and I'm like, hey guys, look at these plates and bowls, and look at our cups. What's the difference? And they're like, ours look like crap. I'm like, yes. Can we level out a little bit? Like, can we try? Can we make our stuff look better? Because I don't feel comfortable with my stuff looking like this next to these guys and stuff. And they're like, that's because Halsey, they're all like, they think they're cool. Like, we're kind of dumb over here. And I'm like, you're not dumb. You just need to try. You need to try. You need to work harder. You need to stop rushing to get back on your phone. You know, or to put your head down because you guys are staying up all night. You know, I'm like on the phone with their friends, not with the people in their class. I mean, yeah, funny. I could talk about these kids forever, but I love them to death. You know, I really love my job. I really love being there. I love all my classes. I love all my kids. Even like they asked me, you know, would you ever be interested in going to the academy, which is where it's all like straight A students that are doing the most to get into the greatest colleges ever, right? And I'm like, no, I'm good right here with my kids, you know, like I like the vibe and just doing my best every day.
In what ways do you think it challenges you? Because you're doing great for the kids, and you're challenging them to become a better person. But how do you think that does the same effect on you?
Oh, patience. Learning patience in degrees that I have never even attempted. You know, like I'm not taking things personally, because the kids that don't listen to me, they're not doing it because it's actually they could care less. You know, like has nothing to do with me. They don't even know my name. So it's really just learning to take everything one day at a time, take everything with a grain of salt. You know, just all those little cliche comments. Just tell yourself, you know, take a breath, whatever it is I need to say, because, you know, it's teenagers that are professionals at rolling their eyes.
Oh God, the attitude.
The attitude is out of this world. You know, they all want to go to the bathroom every single period, and like I'll be on my break walking around, and I see the same kids that ask me to go to the bathroom, just meandering through the hallways, doing a bunch of nothing. I'm like, this is what you do when you ask me to go to the bathroom, you know, like just learning their language and figuring out how to navigate in these waters, you know, and that's across the board is teaching me how to be more calm, be more caring. You know, care first, feel upset later, you know.
That's interesting. I'm pretty sure Kevin has his own comments.
I love that saying, care first, or
And get angry.
You know,
Yeah.
react later at home with, you know.
Poor Freddy.
Yeah.
I think, we think it's the what you call it, the training he does in jiu-jitsu, but now we know where.
Yeah, right. He likes my stories, you know. He looks forward to my school stories, and really, it's been wonderful. Like, I really can't complain.
He's like, as Sierra is explaining something to Freddie, she's like, he's already on a tote.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel really much so like I've realized a dream by getting this job, you know, like a big dream, because I always wanted to be an art teacher since I was little, but I didn't go for art teaching because they told me that there was no jobs. My high school art teacher said, you will have to move to Kentucky. There are no jobs, no one is retiring. They die in their post. And then when they die, the person that is the most qualified, who has already gotten all their credentials and has been working at this forever, will get that job. And so it's just not in the cards. And then when I went to college and I was undecided major, I asked my art teachers in college, and they all said the same thing. You will have to move to the Midwest. There are no jobs. And so I did English as a runner-up. And now, after post-pandemic, there's art teacher jobs, there's every teacher job, there's tons of teacher jobs. And I fell into this. As I said, I didn't really know ceramics, but they needed someone. Just like disclosure, I'm a permanent substitute, so I'm not an official teacher. I'm now going back for those credits that I need in order to be an official art teacher. But I'm a permanent sub, and so as long as I just, you know, keep the kids working and I put in as much effort as possible, they're very happy with what I do. But I'm really happy to have been able to fall into this opportunity because it's something I've really genuinely always wanted. And I just feel really blessed. Like, I feel like I was really in the exact right place at the exact right time, and it really worked out.
Damn, that must be discouraging, right? Like, you want to pursue this career, and everyone's like, yeah, you gotta wait until Miss Doris is 100 years old.
Yeah, shout out to Mr. Walker for telling me the wrong thing. You know, I got his number just to text him. I found his number through the grapevine when I got the job, and I was like, yo, you remember when you told me there was no jobs, and now I have to go back and do college basically again because of you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you, teacher, and also thank you, COVID, for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Somebody that's engaging what they really believed in, right? And also, like, who wants to move to Kentucky for a job opportunity?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, it puts you in the position of like thinking and reflecting. Like you said, you chose English because of that, and you know, I'm pretty sure Kevin has a lot of questions.
Chasing your dreams, amazing. Keep chasing them as you should. It's like
Definitely.
go after them because like the doors will open up.
And I love English. I think once I do the teacher cert process, I'm gonna get dual certified.
Yeah. That seems like a great opportunity for
Yeah.
it. And like I think in that art field with art teachers saying, oh, there's not going to be any jobs. It's like I think that's from I don't think they saw how the future was gonna
Unfold.
Yes, especially with the digital age. I mean, now we even have different types of students.
Yeah.
Like the students that are like silent in class because now they're on their phones probably, and they're probably on their phones like this too. Because I used to be like that in class too.
Now they just be right out open. Right out open.
It used to be for some
Now they're like taking a selfie of themselves.
Oh, they just take it out right and open too. When I went to high school, they used to give us through metal detectors and through all metal detectors like every single morning. So during the first 2 years of high school, we weren't allowed to bring in our phones at all. So I had to drop my phone off at the post office. Like it was like $1 a day for a box. So I had to drop it off in the post office. But
that's amazing. You see, teachers wanted to come and teach because they weren't overthrown by ChatGPT and you know, and just like generally like there's. I can go on.
I think the teaching is mentoring now in a sense. Like, well, I guess I'm going to tie it back to the beginning, where you could learn from a video. You could learn from AI. You could learn from these. I guess AI is different, right? You could learn from these videos and from these tutorials, but then you won't have that experienced person next to you to be like, okay, maybe you just missed this thing, like the handle. You just missed to put the handle a little bit more of a pinch.
Yeah.
Like a tutorial of the video is not going to teach you that.
Well,
Maybe.
And you realize through all this process, at least me as an art teacher, I can't speak for other subjects because I imagine it's very difficult for subjects that are not creative and fun. But there's always going to be kids that love art. There's always going to be kids that when this whole class is moving really slow, they're finished and you have to give them a canvas to paint, or that want your guidance into another avenue of art, that are looking for that creative outlet. And so you just got to do it for them and for the kids that are on their phones, because they might wake up one day and realize, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something fun, that isn't just involving watching a TikTok video.
I believe like what you guys are saying is very important, because if you really think about it, right? You both of you guys, all of us, been here through college, and think about it. Let's say you decide to go to the highest degree where you got to create your own thesis, 6-year investigation, where you're experimenting to create a new theory. If you always depended on technology to give you answers, where's your criteria? It's almost like that's the shortcut of using the technology. It's like you forget to create your own criteria. And when you unfortunately go on that route, where's your identity?
Yeah.
Where's your trademark? What makes you a better professional than the guy that copy and paste? My time there was no copy and paste. You had to really think. You had to really investigate. And I believe that's a beauty too. That's an art form. Because, for example, what you do with the kids, they're exploring something unknown, and they have that tangible feeling of like how to shape something, And like you're saying, maybe in a chemistry class, it's all about rules. But again, if you don't learn those rules, guess what? You can't be a chemist.
Yeah.
Right? And the same thing here in the art form. Yeah, you have to be creative, but where's your identity?
Yeah.
You need to have an identity. You need to have something that makes you different from everyone else, and that your art, withstands. And we were just talking about this with Freddie yesterday, right? We were talking about the difference between we're talking about the difference between something that's good and something that withstands time. And since you love art, and we were talking about like Van Gogh and Picasso and all these great artists, to you, how you tell the difference between something that's good and something that is like withstands time? Like even in music, like Michael Jackson is like a great example. Like
I feel it. Like I'll hear a song and I'll say, when this person made this song, they knew. They knew it was it. This was it. It's like like Bohemian Rhapsody. They told him, this is trash. We'll never put this out as a single. And
it's
he was
too
like,
long, right?
Yeah, and he was like, haha, let's see about that. Because he knew, it's like when you make something, it's like close to godliness. Like it's like you are tapping into another dimension almost. Like you're connecting to that ether of like
perfection almost.
Yeah, and so I can just feel it. When you see it, when you hear it, when you wear it, whatever art it is, that this is forever. This is something forever.
I like that. Bohemian Rhapsody is actually a really good example, because the producers at that time, I think the music was only like less than 4 minutes long.
And they kept saying, give me a single. This isn't a single. You can put this on the album, but this isn't a single. And he was like, I will not. And look what happened. You put that on anywhere, and the whole room breaks out into a musical. And so,
what are your thoughts, Kim?
I think it's like, so a popular phrase in the art world is steal like an artist, and it's basically taking a similar approach to like a copy paste format, but then adding your spin on it. Like it's like how in writing they say plagiarizing but plagiarizing is if you actually take like that specific word by word by word, versus like somebody who then mixes the words for their own style. Like That's it's a popular phrase in the art world. Steal like an artist. I think it came from Andy Warhol. I think. Uh, yeah, again, I think. So I think Andy Warhol. And that one makes you think about like the living the outstanding art. And the outstanding art is the type of art where the artist will go to steal from to then create their own ideas from it. So like steal like artists. You take this let's say someone made like a hot air balloon look like the best hot air balloon in the world. Someone else takes it and they add next to a couple of characters chilling on top
like
of
all
the
art
balloon.
is imitation,
Mhm.
or like there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah, and that's what it's kind of like. It's like that's kind of like what we learn as babies as well. Like from when you're a baby, you kind of like imitate until you get to know what fits, like what exactly is fitting. So it's like art is based on, especially I guess in the beginning stages of artists, you gotta kind of like imitate what is inspired from until the voice is then heard out of the voice is heard and saw, right? Because art saw and art is singing. So the voice is heard after doing it a couple of times, and then I think that's where like you discover like some form of identity within
In
the
your own
artist.
style. Yeah.
Yes. Because then you imitated some work, and then you're like, oh wait, this is what I did differently, and then it's like, okay, wait, I did that differently, then to this work too. What happens if I could combine these two together?
It's like your own fingerprint, you know?
Yes, very much.
There's always like a renaissance moment for somebody that you can be inspired by a certain philosophy, but your renaissance moment comes when you have discovered your own uniqueness and identity because you were inspired by previous authors before. Now you have a clear idea what you learned from that, but how can you make that your own identity? And I think that's the hardest thing to do. Why? Because it's like, think about this, like when we're younger, we can't project what we're going to be in 20 years. That's hard. Now think from a creative side. It's like,
everything's changing all the time in a sense, right?
It drives me crazy when, like, for example, you think about Da Vinci. Like, what went through his mind to do so much? Like, what are your thoughts about it? That guy was everywhere. He was doing everything and anything. Like, I just like, man, this guy must have had a clone or something because he was working on, on drawing.
He was an insomniac. He didn't really sleep.
Yes, that's right.
So he had double the time. And he was delusional.
He cheated.
Yeah, right. He was delusional from not sleeping, and so.
You think that's where like his creative side
Absolutely
got like abstracted even to a higher dimension?
I think a lot of the like great artists, you're just like geniuses, you're kind of teetering on the line of insanity sometimes.
That's a very good point of view.
Yeah.
Because you definitely have to be insane, which means like you're trying different things, right? Instead of doing the same thing, expecting different results, you're always trying something different. But that's actually pretty interesting. The time he probably invested, those nights where everyone is sleeping. But also, I believe that's what makes people very successful. While people are sleeping, there's somebody out there working even harder. And preparing the next material for like that hasn't been seen yet.
Yeah, I agree with that too. It's like when you're in that zone, it's like you create more. It's like you do have to like double time. The video, because he wasn't able to. You're just able to work more, and when you work more, you produce better works. And I remember I was saying this analogy, like one person, there's these two classes. Maybe you could test this out in your classes too. So, so there's these two classes. This one class is there to perfect one pot, and it's cool. It dives into ceramics. So this one class is there to perfect this one ceramic pot, and they got perfected by the end of the semester. There's other classes there to perfect 100 ceramic pots, and not perfect, but they're supposed to make 100 ceramic pots, and through each iteration, they're supposed to make it better and better and better and better. So then they by the time they got to their 100th pot, it's 100 times better than their first pot. Versus that one class is there to perfect that one pot. At the end of the semester, you had these two classes that get into a competition, and they say which pot was better. And then they say that the class that made 100 pots by the end of the semester was better than the class that was just trying to perfect one pot.
Absolutely, from the practice.
Yes, they're making iterations and iterations and iterations.
You could even see from the other teacher that I said works, we share a classroom, so on my break and periods that I'm not in the classroom, he has a class, and vice versa. And you can see, because he's been there since the beginning of the year, and because he's been doing this for so many years, he knows how to get these kids on a track where by this time of year they're already making really, really beautiful things, and it's because they've already practiced enough, you know. And when I was beating myself up about my little pinch pots, he was like, this is like the second thing they've done all year, you know, of course it's going to look like that, you know. You got to give yourself some grace. You just started, and you've got to go slow because you're getting to know all the system and everything, like just even the grading portal and attendance portal and the different ways that the school runs and the staff and everything. It's definitely, even just in a simple arts class, you can see how the practice makes a huge difference, even with kids that aren't going to major or go off to college or do art professionally, kids that don't like art, kids that rather not have taken this class. Even though it's an elective, I hate when they tell me I don't want to take this class. I'm like, but you chose this class.
That's funny. So I hate it here.
Yeah,
but you chose it, man. Like
I hate drawing. I'm like, you definitely, because I have one art drawing and painting class, and it's like, you chose this though. They're like, well, it was what was available. I'm like, but you still chose this. So yeah, you know, I think that practice makes perfect is such a really, and like the whole, like if you put in 500 hours, you're a master of something. Or was it 5,000 hours, you'll become a master of something.
The more you do, the better you get.
Yeah.
Especially when you go more and more and more. And that's like with the Da Vinci at night, and like a lot of successful people either waking up really early or going to sleep really late. Because the more they do, the more it gets
opportunities they also open for themselves.
Yeah, it compounds.
But something that I'm concerned, and I'm gonna own these words on my own, has nothing to do with my co-host or my guest, is we confuse academic achievement with behavior and discipline. And one of my biggest concerns, you know, I went to a military high school. I was fortunate to go to a military high school where the academia was great, but so was the discipline. And for any person to be very successful in life, you need more than just academic brilliance. You need to understand the professional etiquette, how to behave, how to sustain social conversations, how to also create an image for yourself where people can trust you and validate your criteria. And I'm very concerned because in the years that are coming by, and I'm starting to see this more, is there's a lack of accountability from the Department of Education in that aspect. It's almost like, yes, let's read books, yes, but good, you can read a book, but if you don't know the value of the book, because you can't find value in your own behavior, how would that be useful to you? I think it's a snowball effect, because
like we're all helpless almost.
Yeah, because the discipline starts from your house. You can't blame the school system. You gotta blame the people that first give you the first orientation of life.
Yeah.
Which is your parents.
And this town is full of trauma.
So
it's full of trauma. It's full of broken homes, single parents, no parents at all. You know, there's kids that, I mean, yeah, I can't really go into details, but there's a lot of really sad stories. And so can you blame a kid that has a really horrible situation happening at home, something that you've never even personally had to deal with yourself, for not having any interest in an art class? Not really.
Of course, there's no one to blame, but the question is like it's wrong to judge, but that doesn't take away the accountability and responsibility.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, somebody's accountable for that child, and the first line of accountability is the parent.
Yeah.
And normally, what happens a lot in the school system is also the kids are not doing well at school. Who do they blame? The teacher. It's the teacher's fault. Now, cool, you can blame the easiest person to blame, but ask yourself first, like, what am I doing? When I come out from work, and I get it, you're tired, right? You come from work 8, 12 hours, and then your child is also struggling to do homework. But that's the responsibility you have. You can't give that responsibility to someone else, because at the end of the day, you decided to bring that child to the world, and you have to sacrifice the most for that child. Because if you really love them, you're gonna stop blaming everyone else, and you're gonna really start taking accountability for yourself. Maybe again, you can't win in everything in life. Maybe you work less hours. Instead of 12, you work 10 and give those 2 hours back to your kid.
Yeah.
Because that's going to influence your kid when he becomes a parent one day.
Yeah.
If he decides it, he's going to remember, damn, my dad used to come home tired, but I remember he went from working 12 hours to 10 just to dedicate 2 hours to me. And that influences. Because now you're creating a bond with your child.
Yeah.
And again, it's easy to make excuses. Very easy. It's like, oh yeah, but I'm tired. Oh yeah, but, and also the same thing, with, there's a lot of single moms out there. It's really hard for them too. Let's not forget about them. And how do you deal with raising a child that's now being a teenager? Sometimes you need the male figure to be in those years because that helps them, and it's a team formation to grow a child. It takes a whole town, a whole community to raise children, and it's a good saying because if you see if you know a kid that is doing something wrong in your neighborhood, what is the first thing you should do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not like you're snitching, but he doesn't know anybody. He's only 13. Like, what can he know about life?
Yeah.
If he doesn't get corrective actions, how would he get out of that situation? I don't know. What do you guys think? Who wants to go first? Kevs?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's kind of hard, like with kids and disciplining kids, and well, I don't have kids yet, at least, right? And I know the perspective of being a kid itself, right? Well, when I was a kid, I would just want to. What really helped was sports. Like getting into sports is what helped discipline me. Because then, as I got into sports, it's like, oh, I needed to go through training, I needed to go to practice, and and if I wanted to play in the game, I gotta make sure I had a high score. I had to make sure I exceeded these expectations in order to be able to play. All right. So sports is one of those avenues where discipline can be brought into it, and especially if you're like in a single parent household or things like that, because it's hard for it's especially so my mom was single, my dad was a single parent too, mainly grew up with my mom, and it was hard for her to be the disciplinary. Yeah, it was just hard for her to take on the role of a disciplinary role. So like I learned my own disciplines through sports and what not to do and what to do. If you're a parent out there that's trying to build discipline into your kids, but trying to find avenues to do that, maybe getting them into a sports program at school, or even outside of school, if budget doesn't allow, there might even be free programs out there for it. Just to get them in an activity that teaches them the discipline, an activity that they might like, and if they do like it, then they'll be disciplined in order to continue it. And because then afterwards becomes like a punishment, the activity then gets taken away if you can't do that activity. So I think sports is a great way to to help assist kids discipline and as well as building confidence, teaching them how to play with others, teaching them like social rules and all that. Like sports is a great avenue, amazing avenue to instill those behaviors into them.
What are your thoughts here?
I think that we're all a little lost right now in this world. I think that the parents that are trying they really think they're doing their best. And there's a lot of parents that aren't trying. And the kids are the ones that have to suffer for that. I think there's a lot more than we realize of kids that are being their own parent. Like when I was originally subbing, one of my first classes was 4th grade, and we have to wait for the kids at the end to get picked up by their parents, and at least 7 of them were walking home by themselves. And this is downtown Elizabeth, and that broke my heart. Like, these are babies, literally, and they're walking home, and what does that mean? That when they get home, there's nobody home? Like, shouldn't that, like, not even be legal? And, like, it is. I looked it up. It's legal. Like, you don't have to have a babysitter, and that's, after a certain age, I think it was, like, 8 or 9, and you hear things that I can't, that's just one small story, but you hear other things that I can't necessarily share, but there's so much going on, so much complexities, and so much suffering on a grand scale in these urban spaces where everybody's hustling to try to survive and make the money they need to put the food on the table. Everything is so expensive. The technology age, I think, baffles everyone. No one knows really what to do about it, because I think like taking the phone away, we're a little bit past that. It's almost like it's integrated into their being, and it's hard to, like, you can't recreate the wheel, like you can't, like, the damage is almost done, if that makes sense, when it comes to how technology has infiltrated schools and children's lives. Like, if you look into statistics on how so many more kids are depressed, so many more kids are suicidal, so many more kids are filled with anxiety. I think that the best you can do is try to be your best, try to be a light, try to be supportive. Like I said, care before you react. Understand that there might be ignorance, but it's not malice. It's these kids are doing what they can. Like, maybe they're not even, I wouldn't want to say they're doing their best, but they're not necessarily doing their best. And can we blame them? Can we expect them to? What will come of this lack of discipline? Wasted time, going to school for things that they don't really want to go to school for because they didn't know to really figure it out first. A lack of really getting to know oneself. Lack of self-realization, self-worth, self-understanding. I think that discipline leads to all of those things, and it allows you to make better decisions. It allows you to figure out the Rubik's Cube that is life, I think, more effectively. And so without that discipline, or with the lack of discipline, I think a lot of these kids are going to have some hard times. I didn't have discipline. Like, my dad was working 24/7, and my mom was so nice. Like, she didn't know, like you said, she didn't know how to be the disciplinary. She thought just talking to me about things and trying to just, like, be friendly all the time was gonna, and she believed everything I said, and I was lying all the time. Like, I was, as a teenager, I was lying all the time. I would say I'm over here when I was really over there, and she believed me. And so I would just do what kids do, where you just, like, do the wrong thing because your brain's not fully developed, and so you're doing stuff that you think this is fun, this is it. But when you look back on life, it's like, wow, I spent my high school years so hyper focused on friends, so hyper focused on chilling. I had the cell phone too. It wasn't this kind of phone with the smartphones, but I had like the little flip phone, and we were texting all the time, and we were up late on the phone talking, and I was so hyper focused on friends and the relationships that I could make that you don't realize like half of those people you're never going to even talk to, and what you really should be doing is getting involved in clubs, getting involved in things that get you in touch with yourself so that when you graduate, you're not completely confused as to where to go next. And that doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out and your major decided. I actually think it's best to wait on college, which I might get in trouble for saying too. I don't think necessarily most kids should really get out of high school and go straight into college because most of the time the major you choose isn't what you want later. So maybe take a break, work, just save up some money, start a little business, start a little hustle, get into art, get into everything. Like that's what I tell my kids, like get into hobbies, throw yourself into different ways of working with your hands, working with your brains, different things that you can do as a pastime that can later become passions, that can later become income. Because right now, with the way things are looking, you're going to need all your passion projects to become money makers. Like what I look back on in my regret most is how come I wasn't figuring out ways to make money in a fun way, in a way that I enjoyed, so that by the time I got to my age, I was already sitting pretty. Because if you really hyper focus in high school on that, you can figure yourself out by late 20s. You can be really, really set by late 20s. And I don't mean because you went and got a PhD and became a doctor. I mean you can really just figure out what you like and what you want by diving and delving into things and by focusing on yourself. And what betters you, what makes you a better human being, what makes you a more valuable person based on the skills that you have and the knowledge that you have and the understanding that you have. But without discipline, it's very difficult to unlock that box, that Pandora's box to you, because all you're doing is just kind of floating through life with no anchor. And so I feel for these kids because a lot of them have really good reasons for being undisciplined and for being stuck to their phones. And then maybe if I was in another land where like, Cherry Hill or something like that, where they got like Princeton and all the money and they're still glued to their phones, I might look at those kids as like, ugh. But like my kids, they're trying to just disassociate and distract themselves from real life that hurts and is hard and difficult. And even, you know what, I don't want to throw a towel to the kids that come from money, and because a lot of them are going through struggles too, where yeah, we have money, but their life is not peachy keen either. And just like look at the world, like all these kids are surrounded and bombarded by terrible information. Since 9/11, it has just been war, famine, disease, pandemic, terror, be afraid, be sad, be nervous. You're not going to have social security. You're not going to have this. There's no protection for you. You're getting deported. Like, look at the news. They almost have to disassociate to get through just the constant influx of awful information that is swimming and surrounding us all the time. So it's a lot, we could talk about this for a long time.
Yeah. We're definitely going to continue that because there's something important. You said a lot of important things, but one that stuck up to me was the amount of exposure to successful careers for our youth. That's a big opportunity because you could think you could be an engineer, but do you really know what it takes to be one? It's two big differences.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, it's cool. You know how to make that camera, yeah, but this is how it looks like. Real counseling, not talking about, oh yeah, you want to be an engineer, yeah, you take all these classes. They're just telling you the structure of classes you got to take. They're not showing you what it really looks like. What is the practical? And I think that's another big opportunity about our school system is expose them from a early age what this really looks like. Like for example, I have a good friend that's a chemist, and he was saying like there's not a lot of people that become chemists. Math is the same thing. There's not a lot of people that go. Why? Because it requires a lot of discipline, and there are rules. and people have a hard time following rules. They want to create their own rules. But I love what you said. From an early age, if you're able to discover what you love, that doesn't mean that you can go to a trade school and love being a carpenter. But you found that at an early age where you have the opportunity to enjoy revenues with your youth and your career. And you're loving every moment about it.
And you're setting yourself up with skills that last forever.
Exactly.
You don't have to be a carpenter for the rest of your life, but you still have that in the reserves. I know a lot of the girls, they want to do like eyelashes and like microblading. Go ahead, all that. I'm so like, you have so much free time right now. Don't spend it on your phone. And if you are spending it on your phone, be watching something that is creating a skill in your mind. Like you're learning about something. You're just developing more knowledge on something, whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be the end all be all for the rest of your life. It's just develop more skills, get in touch with yourself, so that when you graduate, you're not just a complete fish out of water. Or when you're mid-20s, you're like, wow, I am still not sure who I am or what I'm doing, and that's normal too. Like it's just, at the bottom line of all of this whole subject is just like, I feel for these kids, I do, because we're living in some times right now.
Also, you can easily identify it. Like that was going to be my next question, right? We have different generation of being students here.
Oh yeah, three students.
I want to hear your story.
Yeah, like I'm technically generation the millennials, and we used to be the generation everybody couldn't stand because that we were the babies and the brats and we were ruining everything, and we were always attached to our phones and our sidekicks, and we were the first ones with the iPhones, and we were the first ones to kind of stop playing hide and seek so that we could just watch TV. Ooh. We were the first ones to like join that technology era where we like became one with our devices. And so we were the first ones that people hated on, like the Generation X was looking at like, y'all don't even go to concerts. Like, you guys are boring. Well, imagine now we're the ones that are working 3-4 jobs so that we could just keep a roof over our heads because we can't even afford to buy a house anymore. We're the ones that, that literally lived through every tragedy known to man that could possibly exist within the last like 15 years. Like we have
terrorist attacks.
Yeah, everything. We're the ones with like where we were the first ones to have school shooting, mass school shootings, but also where we now have like these school shooting drills.
Yes.
That was like abnormal, like never before seen. Now with the generation after me, which I think is Generation Z or Y or whatever, they are that's totally normalized for them. So it's like we've got the shock era of like, oh, you're not going to be able to get a house. Sorry. Oh, you're not going to like. Whereas the generation after me and the kids that I'm teaching now, it's like that's just built into them. That trauma is like they were born into that trauma. We were born into like the tail end of things being pretty good, and then we got smacked with like, this is the reality. Hollywood is a pedo ring, and like, wake up to the Illuminati and blah blah blah. We were watching all the documentaries like, for real? Conspiracies? Whereas like, whereas these kids are like, of course, obviously. I know that. We all know that. And can we do anything about it? No. Like, at least we thought we could do something about it. Whereas these kids are just like helpless.
That's a good point. Very good point.
I have hope though. I have hope for these kids. I have hope with the internet, like, because they will be pioneers. Like, they will be pioneering the digital forefront in a new way. Like, so we have these different generations. So this generation is like set up the foundations for the digital forefront to come through. Yeah, you guys set up the foundations for it.
Sierra was on point.
Yeah, you were on point. And it's so hard because it's like, I even know, like, it's gonna be like it's so difficult right now in the future too. It's like, like even the jobs, the entry level jobs even now, it's like, it's hard to even sustain like the bills off of entry level now. It's like,
it's impossible.
It is, and it really is
impossible.
Minimum wage
was created so that anyone, a mechanic, a McDonald's worker, a doctor, anyone if you're making, well, not a doctor, but I mean like no matter if your job is prestigious or not, if you're making minimum wage, you can afford to purchase a home and sustain a family. That is what it was based on. And now, minimum wage is I live in a room without a bathroom. Like,
yeah, that's how it goes.
I have a sink for a shower. Like, I share a toilet with 6 people. Like, yo, it's on another level.
Inflation.
And inflation is just no end in sight. You go to the grocery store, it's $9. You go next month, it's $11. You go next month, it's $14. You go next month, it's $17. Like, wait for what? But like, no one is gonna do anything about this. You know, like I don't mean to sound all dreary. I have hope for these kids. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because that's why I went into teaching, is because I saw this a long time ago. Again, zeitgeist. You know, we saw all the documentaries. Like, I always wanted to be a beacon, because that's all you can do. Mm-hmm. All you can do. You know, I used to stress about the animals and, oh my God, you know, I have a cat rescue. I love animals. I don't eat meat. Like, I used to just stress, and how can I be the one to teach people? You got to work right at home, right here in your heart, and then you can change the people who are closest to you. And that is the best way you can impact your community.
That's true. You start with what you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, some people want to start where they shouldn't even be first.
Yeah.
You know, and they get confused, like, oh, you want to tackle the big things? No, start in your community. Yeah. You know everyone in your community.
Yeah,
right?
and that's why I do the events. That's why I do everything I do, because I have hope, you know. But I do understand why things are the way they are when it comes to kids, when it comes to lack of discipline, when it comes to parents even. I feel for everybody. I feel for everyone right now.
I guess this is where my hope is in the digital age. The digital front is where the hope is a little bit. I mean, like, yeah, they're on their phones and stuff, and like, yeah, it's becoming more of an addiction than anything else, right? But it's done like the digital front is still freshly new. It's only like since 1980s, 1990, where we're like really like what we're like. When did the computers come out? Like when was
the
first
home computer was like late 70s, but it was
the big box, right? And you needed like that big magnifier. My grandma used to have the magnifier. It gets a 12 rod. Yeah, she had a big one. I was like, oh, but it's all like computer, like it's still somewhat new, and now in the 2000s, that's when you were able to transfer currencies over the internet, and now we have a new currency coming out, like the cryptocurrency. Yeah. Now we have a new currency coming out, like cryptocurrencies, and like it seems like pseudo. It doesn't seem like it's gonna be a good like way, but it's something to combat the inflation. So like new strategies are coming back with the digital tech front, and I think the kids are gonna do an amazing job exploring the tech and utilizing it to connect. Well, so like there's some millionaires that are even like 16 years old. Like how did a 16-year-old become a millionaire?
Wow.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that makes me feel like I'm not doing enough with my life.
Right. Yeah, right. That's what I feel like that too sometimes. And I'm just like, oh.
There's like pets that are millionaires.
Yeah, right. It's crazy how people are making like this amount of money online.
The world is wild.
Right, but it shows that there's new opportunities coming to the front. Like before, you only made money through physical work, physical shops, physical laborers. Like now, a new opportunity is like there is a digital labor front, and a digital labor front is it's kind of lucrative, especially if these kids like learn like certain like things online that the next generation's gonna need. Like
I'm all for that. Like as long as you're not just like losing like just completely slaving your life away to TikTok all day, or like just Instagram scrolling. Because when I walk by, you know, and I take a peek at what they're looking at, it's always just like silly videos or just stuff to make them laugh. And again, I understand the need to decompress, and I understand the need to disassociate, but it's very constant, and it reminds me of. Did you guys ever see the movie WALL-E?
Oh yeah,
Oh.
definitely.
I feel like that we're on the
On.
we're in there.
In that era, but you know, interesting you brought that point because every era has its goods and bad. I'm going to talk about my era. I'm from the '80s, and all we did was be in the streets and play, like play soccer, play. We would invent games because obviously there was no such thing as, games made for us. We had to invent them. And what's funny is like how parents view us being in the street, that we were vagos, we were lazy, we were all day in the streets. And what's funny is
Now
that
they wish they could get their kids to come out and play.
and it's funny because
It's like when teachers didn't want kids to talk so much, and we're like, "Oh, quiet down, be respectful." They probably would have killed to have a silent class like mine are. But now it's awkward. It's like, what is this? Talk.
yeah, and so what's funny is like now you see that, right? But what I love about that era was a child didn't have so much anxiety because they were always running. They were always exercising. As much as they were creative with their mind about a game and concentrated, being disciplined through the game itself, right? But they were also like working out all the time. They were completely active.
They were outside.
They were outside
getting sun.
Exactly.
Which is so underrated for how important it is to get real sun.
Yes, and then but the bad thing about that time, because we can't just talk about the good, we got to talk also about the bad, is like there was very poor education in terms of like parenthood. Back then you were a child, they used to beat the crap out of you, right? Let's be real, that also causes trauma. Men were leaving their wives like left and right back in that era, creating like destruction. So every era had a good and bad. You mentioned something about the sun.
Yeah, that's true. The there's a lot of just stories out there. If you kind of get to know your friends of your age, and kind of like right before me, like Freddie's age, because he was born in '86. There is a lot of history of really bad parenting, where like your parents just leave, like they're just working all the time. And I know I just talked about that here too, but I think there is like even just the parents taking the kids' side now, the way can be frustrating as a teacher. But back in the day, it's like your teacher could be straight up lying about you, and your parent would just completely ignore everything you say. Like there wasn't really like I feel like there was a lot less respect, towards their kids. It was just kind of like, definitely. I'm the parent. It is what I say, my way or the highway, cause I said so kind of stuff. Like no real explanation, just like treating kids like they're just like less than, and like they're belittled, and like they're not, the fights that you would go on in front of kids and stuff back in the day. It's like now there's a lot more knowledge and education on like, you shouldn't do this in front of your kid because it will traumatize them. You should be more careful and more helpful and more connected. And so there is like a lot more like just people who are going to have kids like reading self-help books and reading books about parenting and actually caring to be like the gentle parent, rather than just like the first course of action is let me beat you or something, So for sure, I can agree with that.
And then also that's you can see like how extremes are bad, because in one era the extreme was the overindulgence of discipline, which was done with, hitting, violence,
emotional abuse,
exactly, psychological abuse,
belittling, yeah.
Because back then in the '80s it was common that a man will hit a woman, right? So then on the other side,
and cheat a lot.
Exactly, cheat a lot, and women will be submissive.
Yeah.
So, and then now in this era, you get the other radical point of like your kids you can't say anything.
Yeah, everyone gets a prize.
Exactly.
Like,
so
no one is a winner.
Exactly. So that's the whole
participation.
Yeah, participation.
So
awards.
But why do we sell lies? Because it's easy to do it, than to really sell the truth, which is going to take a lot to digest. And a lot of people have hard times digesting truth. And I want to go a little bit into that realm of exploration, because you said the sun is really good. You're somebody that loves the outdoors.
Yeah.
where did this passion come out?
Parents that never took me anywhere.
Really?
Yeah.
That inspired you, but how?
I never went anywhere. I never did any type of nature thing. Like we went to the beach, like I could count on my hands how many times we went to the beach. You know, my parents were very, you know, you could spend time with your grandma, and I loved my grandparents, but that wasn't like quality experiences. And so it wasn't until I was 19 that I was going through a really bad breakup, and my friend was like, "Let's go kayaking," and I was like, "What?" I'm like, no. She's like, "It's easy." I was like, "I've never done that." She's like, "It's easy. Let's go. You can do it." She took me kayaking, and I was hooked. Like I was just like, "What? This is beautiful," and then I started doing hiking, and I started just going out and putting myself into like nature, because my friend who took me kayaking was like, "Oh, if you like this, let's go on a hike. Let's go do this." And I was like I said, I was going through this breakup, so I just wanted to be outside. And I realized, like, wow, I missed out. It's kind of the same with dancing. I love dancing so much, and it's like I never really danced all my life. I grew up thinking I couldn't really dance and didn't know how, and so I convinced myself I didn't like it. With nature, no one ever exposed me to that. No one ever brought me to these beautiful places. So once I realized how much I loved it, I felt like I had a lot of time to make up for it. I felt like I had a lot more to see than I wasn't seeing for all these years. And so I just threw myself into it, and once you build a habit of being outside, you can't. It's like you can't go back. You can't go back because your body knows what it needs. Your body will feel it and recognize that this is vital. This is life changing, and so and life building and life creating and life instilling, and it's everything.
And nature's a part of us.
It is.
Like if you really just go out walking and just breathe a little bit, you feel different than breathing inside a room.
Yeah, it's everything. It's literally everything. Like being on the water, being connected with the water. Like if you go without the sun for a long period of time, your whole immune system crashes.
Oh, yeah.
Your immune system will literally stop working if you don't get enough sun or you don't take some kind of supplement, which the supplements really are nothing compared to the real thing. Just like cold water is so important and so rejuvenating and so healing. Hot air, heat, sauna air, like level air is so important. Just walking, going up into the clear, pollution-free mountains. All of these things are, I think, were part of everyday life for our ancestors, and I think that they were all overall a lot more healthy than we were.
Yeah, I know you love going outdoors as well.
Like now we can drag our lives out because there's a lot of medicines and a lot of like advancements, but I think if our ancestors back in the day had these medical advancements, they'd have lived till they were like 150.
Maybe that's why in biblical times they used to live much longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had the natural stuff. They knew how to use their food as medicine for sure.
Yeah. So nature is like a huge part of who I am and what I need, what keeps me going, what keeps me grounded, and it's everything.
What's the coolest place you've been?
Montana, Glacier National Park.
What made it so special for you?
Gorgeous, just amazing views, absolutely beautiful. Mountains, snow-capped mountains all surrounding everywhere, but it was warm enough even though the snow is all over the place. It's still hot because it was summertime. The water is crystal clear. It's like untouched. It's completely, and then Yosemite too. Wow, Yosemite in California is like giant's land. Like it's almost unbelievable when you see it because you see these beautiful mountains here, and then you see this scale of size of just amazing nature that it's just gorgeous. Also, Utah is really beautiful because it's like you're on Mars and you keep driving and it's like then it's snow and then it's red and then it's blue and then it's green and it's like it's like you're on a whole nother planet.
Salt Lake.
Yeah, I've been lucky to see a lot of beautiful places, but I make that a part of like. I don't have a home right now because I think I spent a lot of time traveling because I didn't know that homes were going to be 7 times the cost eventually. And so I literally sacrificed comfort and certain amenities in life so that I could see things.
Interesting. What about you, Kevs? What's your attachment with nature?
Oh, I love going outside. I used to go outside all the time, go on like little hikes, go exploring. one of my favorite things to do, like when I was younger, was to explore abandoned places. Like I used to just like love looking at like I used to love exploring like where life used to be, right? And it's just like it was just beautiful just to be like, whoa, this place used to be active and full, and now it has vines and greens and all that growing on it, and it was just like such a beauty, a wonder. It was adrenaline seeking too, a little bit too. So it was very beautiful as I went out to go explore different like abandoned places. That was a lot of fun. Water always got to me too, just because looking out past the horizon is just that's one of those things. It's like this world is just huge. It makes you feel like this tiny in a sense. And it's not a bad thing, you know. It's pretty cool. And then when hiking, it's good to get that air. I think now is like as I think now I don't go out as often. I think now I had not that I have sacrificed it. I know I'm just putting it a little bit on the back burner. Just a little bit on the back burner, and then to get me to go out to explore to different places, like Utah. Utah is one of those places where I must go.
Must.
It's a must see. Yeah, so I have to go there soon. I'll skateboard on the rocks.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
I, on the other hand, I was more of a beach guy.
Yeah.
Like I love the beach.
Love the beaches.
Being raised in for a couple of years in Ecuador, you know, you get to love nature itself. It's beautiful, but you have the beach, and there's something about man and the water that makes you feel like there's a complete cycle of life when you get in there and you get to feel the heat of the sun, but then you submerge yourself into the waters, and then you feel like you're just floating. Absolutely. And you just want to continue to just float and feel the saltiness of the sand, you know, merge with your skin, and then you toast a little because the sun is telling you this is how you will form.
Yeah.
You know, and so to me, it's always the beach that gets me. And don't get me wrong, I will go anywhere. You tell me.
No, I love the beach too, though. I got
The beach
plenty of
is
stories
great.
about. I've lived in Cali for years, so I love the beach for sure. The beach is definitely like top tier.
Top tier. And
Like Big Sur is gorgeous. You know, there's a lot of amazing and Fred. I was lucky enough that Fred took me to Ecuador, and we did like a whole road trip.
oh, you did the road trip?
And it was really beautiful. So just beaches are everything. All of nature, all of it. The rivers, the beaches, the lakes, the forests, all of it.
It's funny because
Mountains.
if you go to Ecuador, it has all four regions. It has like the island, it has the highlands, the rainforest, and it has the coast. So you get to experience like everything in
every
one
type
country.
of terrain.
Yes, and it's very unique too. And speaking about uniqueness, one thing that always been, I think, I believe a taboo for a lot of people is when people have allergies for things. Like, I can just imagine when you were younger and you developed these allergies in food. How did they view that? Because I remember when somebody had an allergy, like they couldn't eat like gluten or something. They were like, "Oh, you're just making this up," and it's almost like they didn't care. How did you take it, and how bad was it when you were growing up?
So, growing up, I had no idea that I had this allergy. I was sickly. You know, I didn't have the greatest immune system. Hold on one second. I didn't have the greatest immune system, and I was like unwell for not all the time, but more often than the average person, right? And then when I was about 18, I went to 18, 19, I went to Australia, and I went on my own. It was my first time traveling on my own somewhere, and I wanted to save money, so I made sandwiches for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Just sandwiches. Just bought a big loaf of bread, a bunch of meat, you know, like deli meats, because I ate meat at the time, cheeses, and tomatoes, lettuce, and onion, and just made a bunch of sandwiches every day, morning, noon, and night. And I felt horrible. I was super sick, and I didn't know why. And I remember getting back home and going to my doctor, and not my doctor, a new doctor, and I wrote out my medical history, like every time that I had been sick that I could remember, and just as many details as I could think of, because I was so at my wit's end. I had spent so much money to go to Australia just to be sick there. I had a great time, but I was sick. I was uncomfortable, and so I wrote it all out, and I remember him being like, just tell me, like, I don't want to read this. And I was like, are you crazy? Like, I'm writing this to you because I'm tired of being overlooked and not getting my answers. Like, read it, and I'm going to sit right here, and you will read it. I'm paying you, read it. Because at the time I didn't have insurance or anything. I was literally paying like $150 for the visit. I'm like, read my letter. So he reads it. And immediately he goes, which is so great, like, thank God he read it. He goes, you might be allergic to wheat because it sounds like a gluten allergy to me. And I was like, oh, wow, no one's ever told me that before. Thank you for reading.
How old were you?
It was like 18, 19.
Okay.
And gluten is in everything. It's cakes, it's cereals, it's sauces, it's bread, it's every bread, it's crackers, it's a lot of chips.
And you were eating this normally while
And I was eating it like crazy. I would eat a box of Kraft mac and cheese when I got home from school every day, and then eat a dinner that my mom and dad made that was full of wheat. And my mom bought Entenmann's cake, so I wasn't just eating wheat. I was eating highly processed Hot Pockets, Pop-Tarts, toaster strudels, bagel bites, Count Chocula cereal, Captain Crunch cereal, what other stuff? Cookie Crisp. My mom didn't know. She didn't realize like all these highly processed things are terrible for your kids to eat. She was born in an era where that stuff didn't exist. It came about. No one was marketing it as you need to go organic, you need to be healthy, you shouldn't eat this. No one was talking about that back then. No one was talking about what is blue 95 and red 51. No one. There was no knowledge whatsoever about this to the public eye. You had to literally go to Barnes and Noble and look up a book and figure it out for yourself. There was no internet for her to search. There was no Google. You get me? There was no friends enlightening her. So she thought she was doing good by packing our pantry with everything that we like to eat. She'd pick a cereal I have three brothers, one sister. She'd pick a cereal for each of us. She'd pick a cake for each of us. She'd pick like a frozen thing for each of us. Each of us got to pick our own Hot Pocket, stuff like that. So I think not only did I become allergic to this because it's actually in my genes. I found out later. My sister also found out later. My sister's allergic to gluten. I found out later that a lot of the things that happened to me would happen to my grandma, so she probably was allergic to gluten. So it was not only genetically in me, but if you poke the bear and you keep eating the thing that you're not supposed to be eating, and you're eating a highly processed version of it with tons of chemicals that are bad for anyone anyway, you destroy your destroy your organs. Like the things that are supposed to keep you running get tired and they start to turn on you because they begin to react much more ferociously and fiercely and horribly to the thing that they've been dying for you to stop, literally dying for you to stop eating. So I had to go through this transition of cutting these things out. It was very sad because pasta was my favorite food on earth. Back then there were no good gluten-free options. Everything tasted like cardboard and crap. My parents still cannot, to this day, I am 35 years old and this was 19. My parents still cannot remember what I'm allergic to. My brother still mocks me all the time. We'll still put in flour into things that he didn't need to put in flour. Then now I cannot eat, and we'll just say we're not going to stop making stuff the way we make it just for one person. Literally, like this is the stuff. And I love my brother and I love my parents, but this is the stuff that is like normalized behavior. You go to a restaurant that has a gluten-free option and you say, this is what I want. Oh, we're out of that. Like, dude, I just came here because you say you have this and now I have to go somewhere else. Or like servers just being whack and not doing what I asked them to do, or looking at me like I'm being problematic because I'm asking them to change something up, like use fries instead of bread, use chips instead of bread, please make me eggs Benedict without the bread, things like that. And they're like, why? Like, are you crazy? Or just generally people acting like I'm making it up. or because like maybe I might cheat here and there. Like I'm not like I don't need an EpiPen. If I eat it, I'm just gonna feel bad. So once in a while, I will have some artichoke pizza from New York because I love it, you know, and I'll take the pain. Once in a while, you'll see me like sneak a couple scoops of some delicious pasta. But do I wish I could eat the whole bowl? Do I wish I could eat 6 slices of pizza and not die? Sure, I would love that. But I'm gonna feel horrible if I do that. And so it's frustrating and it sucks, and you know.
What's your like when you eat gluten or things you're allergic to? Two questions. What is the normal reaction? How sick do you get? And when do you start turning into being more of that, taking that turn to becoming vegetarian?
Um, we'll need a whole episode for what happens because I think that it would be good for me to expose other women to this because I don't think I'm the only one who suffers from this. Though when
We gotta wait for Autumn for that.
though
Autumn
when
will
I,
love
though
that.
when I went to the doctors, after even the doctor told me this is happening to you because of a wheat allergy, so many doctors after that guy, because that guy's no longer, I don't know where he went, but he's no longer here. So many doctors after that told me there's no correlation between those symptoms and eating wheat. I've never heard of that before. I've had one doctor say to me, "Oh, you're like the girl in the bubble. You're too young to be experiencing this." I've had all kinds of crazy, effed up bedside manner with doctors. It's beyond me. I finally found a doctor who understood it completely, who has had so many clients with the same symptoms, the same problem, who they all think they're cursed, they all come in crying, they all don't understand. But it's kind of personal, but basically, yeah, I think I'd rather do a separate thing on my reactions to it, where we do like a women's. Let's talk about women's.
Yeah,
But it's
I like
women's.
that.
It's a women's reaction.
Yeah.
Like it's like a. I guess I'll say I get UTIs or I get yeast infections, which sucks.
Oh damn. So that would be a definitely, because again, there's a lot of ignorance. Like, they don't understand how severe it gets.
Mhm.
And we need to understand, like, and we gotta stand for our women too, man. Like, think about it. What are men without their ladies? If we don't know how to take care of them, there could be thousands of you out there.
There are, because I've on Instagram now, because I bought like some, not preventive care, aftercare things. Like once it's here, I want to feel better. I've bought some things, so now my algorithm's set up to show me every account that sells something for UTIs and yeast infections, and there's so many women who are suffering, so many.
We definitely gonna make a chapter about
So
that. 'Cause
many
I think
women.
it's very important.
So many women who are suffering from this, so much more than ever before. Like if you ask older women, oh, how many yeast infections have you gotten in your life? 1, 2. Now it's like 6, 7. I gotta be careful on how many antibiotics I take because you're only supposed to take it 9 times in the year, and I've effectively been prescribed an antibiotic 3 times for UTIs, 3 times in 1 year. Like it's, and then the antibiotics work against you, and then they don't work, and they can cause a yeast infection if you have a UTI. It's like it's
wow.
insane. It goes on, and so that's why I said like we could do that
Definitely.
some other time. But I think it's not like my doctor said to me, thank God every day that you have this allergy, because the way the wheat is processed in this country, from seed to sprout to the packaging to your plate, is poison. It's poison for everyone. So you are saving yourself by not eating that from so many other ailments and so many other long-term diseases that creep in little by little as you keep eating this highly processed ingredient. You go to another country and you eat their wheat, and you're not going to feel as bad. So there's a lot of people who are becoming lactose intolerant, gluten intolerant, egg intolerant, who are developing allergies that have skyrocketed more than 300% in the last 10 years. And it's because of the process, it's because of the chemicals, it's because of the sprays, it's because of the GMOs, it's because of all kinds of things. So it's not just me and my little genetics that didn't help the situation. It's also, what have you been eating all your life? What have you been, what have you been exposing yourself to? What levels of pollution is in the air that's also depleting your immune system and making it start to fight back? It's our bodies saying enough is enough.
Definitely. And I'm concerned. What are your thoughts about the stigma people put on, for example, not I wouldn't even say respecting, not even understanding like how poisonous
Oh, the food is.
the food is for her. Like that right there, when you said that, I was like, it's poison. That's it's like your body. What it does, it transforms that into toxin for you. So your organs have to work harder. I have seen people when they get a reaction like that, like an allergy, they get like blisters, blood blisters, because it's your body is reacting and it's like literally trying to throw out the poison that in your system. What are your thoughts about that? It's like the stigma of not understanding.
Yeah, the food is like, I got impacted by it where now I'm like recovering from certain processes of it, not from gluten, but from a different like from just foods in general. Like something that's been helping is like so there's applications that could help you determine how to buy certain foods. Like the Bobby app. The Bobby app is a great app because it tells you like this chemical is what's going to cause a lot of inflammation in here, and this oil is what's going to cause you to have this, and then this dye is going to cause this. So the Bobby app helps out in that because when like back then when you were just getting food, like in my ignorance, it was like when I'm hungry before I would just get food for food. I'll eat it. I'll just eat anything from it, and I'll eat like a lot of processed food back then. And then I'll have like a whole bunch of stomach problems. So that when it got to a certain point, it's when I had ulcerative proctitis, and that's when the intestines start to inflame, and then they start to just like get really they just get really big.
Similar to celiac.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And celiac is a wheat problem.
Yeah.
Like I was debating saying it's similar to celiac, but like I think it's important that people know that like if you're having these symptoms, it might be the wheat, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah. The way they process it.
Yeah, it also could be dairy too. Dairy does so much damage. We are not baby cows.
yeah. It's a lot of it, and it's all these chemicals that they're putting in the food. It's just like
And
a lot
the
of
animals.
Yeah, your body is not made to handle that amount of like literally they are chemical. If you look at the back of some processed food, it's literally just all chemicals.
Hormones.
Yeah, that's just going put into it, and it's so hard for it. Like as soon as I started eating better, the inflammation in my gut was starting to go down. And even like doctors, like when you go, at least when I went to the doctors, like they never provided a nutrition plan. Like they always provided like just take this pill or
chemicals.
stick
chemicals.
this thing up, and it's like whoa.
Yeah,
like,
and that's a huge talking point for holistic doctors where they say we were not trained or taught to focus on nutrition or diet at all. And diet and then I mean we could go further back to the conspiracy of like it used to be, and then the Rothschilds came through and were like no more. And why is that? Because they want a sick society, because a sick society is a paying society. So I mean we could go down the rabbit hole.
It's definitely. But it's important because our first show was with a nutritionist, Malik.
Yes.
And we asked him like, what's the difference between saturated fat and unsaturated? And like he was very blunt. It's like it's genetically modified, so it makes your organs work like 3-4 times harder than when you eat something that's organic. Your body recognizes it and it digests quickly, and it actually has nutrients. So I will look when Malik is back. He's on deployment in Iraq, and he's a fellow veteran like me. When he comes back, I would love to have you with him because Malik is not only very professional, but he's very conscious about like he wanted to talk a little bit about allergies, but we were time limited. And there will be a great merge with your experience.
Yeah, and then maybe in that one I could talk a little bit more in detail. Like also, what was her name? Autumn.
Autumn.
Yeah, if we have like another woman on, like, just because I think again it's like my doctor said, everyone's kind of going through it without realizing it, but I think that there's certain things in the body of a woman that is set up in a certain way that the foods, the way they're processed now, trigger damage in us.
Yeah. She talks about endometriosis a lot.
Yeah,
Like,
they thought I had that. They thought I had that. They thought I had fibroid chewy, whatever that's called. Like, I went through the ringer, you know, and even knowing that I had the allergy, even when I stopped eating that, then I thought I had interstitial cystitis. I might have interstitial cystitis, but basically, even after cutting out wheat, I then was having a new problem, and I was having stomach pains all the time, stomach pains all the time, stomach pains all the time. And the doctor was like, okay, you're gonna go, since you don't have a UTI or yeast and you just have this pain, we're gonna send you to do a test to see if you have interstitial cystitis. They're gonna blow up your bladder like a balloon and check for cracks. And it's a surgery. It's an invasive surgery. And I'm like, wait, what? And so I go for the pre-surgical appointment, and the doctor who's going to do the pre-surgical appointment's a different doctor. He's like, do you eat dairy? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, cut it out for now before you do the surgery and let me know and come back. And then I didn't have to come back because I cut out the dairy and the pain went away. Like,
Oh wow.
they were going to have me do this crazy surgery instead of, you know, and like in the end, I will say I might still have like a bladder condition like interstitial cystitis from all of the stuff that I ate throughout all my life that I shouldn't have been eating that was causing damage to it. Because that's a side effect of like what I have and going against it and still eating the things that are hurting it. But either way, it just shows you like instead of really evaluating what someone's eating first, which could be literally the culprit, people will like send you off to surgery.
It seems like it's a lucrative business at the end of the day because think about it. As a doctor, they send you to school to learn the chemical part of healing and not the natural part of healing.
Yeah.
And so that has to do with again going back to the educational programs we have. It's like what are like big difference to all my psychiatrists out there that are cool as hell. But what is that they do? There's some people that do need those chemicals. Like if you're bipolar, you need a chemical reaction to stabilize a little bit your the chemistry that's happening in your brain. But a lot of people with emotional disorders, psychological disorders, fear, that can be treated naturally.
Yeah.
And through therapy
And diet.
and diet, and the importance of diet and the importance of working out and getting sun and being outdoors. It's such a huge remedy. But the problem is, a lot of people would love to just take one pill and be well.
Yeah.
Than putting in the work for themselves that is a long-lasting, pill. And it's a resource they can go out at any time to get at no cost.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like you were saying something so important about, your whole journey dealing with the allergies. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know, you're such a brave woman to have endured those moments where nobody believed you and nobody said, hey, Sierra, I understand what you're going through. So I put myself in your shoes. It must have been so hard that they overlooked the fact that, and again, I'm not blaming anyone, but it's in their ignorance, they just didn't know either.
Yeah.
They didn't know, like, oh my God, I'm poisoning my daughter.
Or they choose, like my dad finally gets it now. Like he watched this doctor recently and he was like, I want you to go to Santo Domingo. This doctor's talking about gluten-free and he seems like he really knows what he's doing and I know your doctor retired and I really want you to go. Like he is on it. And you know what it took was me breaking down one day and explaining to him like, I can't sit on the floor with like short shorts or I'm gonna get a yeast infection. Like I can't, there's so many things I can't do. Like I had to explain to him how sensitive I really am, how it crosses over my whole life, like, and like what it really is to be in that and like what you feel and like how uncomfortable it is and how embarrassing it is. Like that's why I was like, I don't really know if I wanna get into it right now, but it's like you like the doctor unfortunately he retired. I love him, Dr. Salgado. He was amazing. He literally hyper focused. He was a gynecologist that hyper focused on allergies. He changed his whole career to help women who are going through what I was going through because there's so many of us that we don't realize. And he said, "You all say the same thing. I feel like I'm cursed." Because it's affecting you in this way that's like, no one else has to deal with this. Why do I have to deal with this? And you have to be embarrassed to talk about it. And if somebody asks you what happens when you eat wheat, well, my stomach, like you can't even be honest. And it wasn't until I really broke it down to him that he finally came around and stopped being disrespectful about it. My mom doesn't mean to be disrespectful when she says, oh, what is it again that you're allergic to? She's just kind of like absent-minded. And my brother's just, I love him to death. I hope he sees this. He's kind of a jerk when it comes to it. You know, I think I really wish he could come around and understand. Like, I get the meat thing because I choose not to eat meat. Make fun of me all day if you want. And that's my choice. It's not like I'm allergic to it. I just don't want to eat it. So you can talk about it, put meat and stuff. I don't care. Yeah, it's a conviction. Do what you want. But when it comes to this, it's like, dude, if I could have all this food, I would. I'd eat it more than you. I'd eat 6 plates of pasta right now. I'd put them down. Believe me, you know. So, you know, I'm the one that can't eat it. Like, why are you offended? Why are you upset? I'm the one that can't eat it. You know, you can adjust your menu for the day that I'm gonna be here when I'm barely here as it is. Like, so it's hard. I think what's even harder, because I've already just gotten used to like their latigazos, is like what's worse is strangers, because then I just want to beat them up, you know. I just want to beat you. Like no server who knows nothing. Like, I'm about to get you fired. Like, get out of my face. You know, like it's irritating. It's irritating. It's disrespectful. It's rude.
You just gotta keep yourself healthy.
Yeah, it's invalidating. It's like, who are you? You know, to be giving me this face because I'm asking you to do your job, bro. Like, your tip will be reflected if you just are nice about it. But then, you know, people are learning, and you'll get a, you're gluten-free? Me too! Oh my God! Like, you'll get, my mom is that, or, you know, people are learning, and a lot of people have this sensitivity. It's not even the allergy. It's like there are a lot of people who, when they cut out wheat, they realize, I feel better. Even my husband, Fred, when he stops eating wheat, he calls it zombie food. He's like, it's zombie food. It slows you down. It makes you, you know, bloated. You go to the bathroom less good. Like, all kinds of different things that are, like, across the board. Like my doctor, my beloved doctor who retired, says, it's killing everybody. So be happy that you had the warning early.
I have one last question before we end this beautiful chapter. You have to come back.
Yeah, for sure.
You have to come back.
Yeah, because we got to talk about the events too.
Oh my
we got to plug in. Adopt Jersey Cats. Jersey Cats, plug. Because that's like, we want the cats to get saved more than anything.
Events and more coming up. But this is the last question I have. In 12 years of being married, what does that feel like?
Oh, for me, you gotta say, because for someone else it might feel different, but for me, it's bliss. It's beautiful.
We know Freddie already told us how he feels.
Yeah, Fred is well, no, I mean, I think he would have said something similar. I just mean, like, other people could be married for 12 years. It doesn't feel like that. But for me, it's absolute bliss. It's blessings on blessings on blessings on blessings. I could talk for another 3 hours about Fred, but I'll save y'all. He is the best. Like,
is he perfect? Like Kevin?
He's not perfect.
Oh, Kevin!
But I think if someone was perfect, then I'd feel uncomfortable. Like, I spent the first, like, 3 years with Fred convincing myself, like, I'm not good enough for this guy. Like, he's gonna leave me. He's gonna find some, like, musical genius goddess queen and realize, like, what am I doing with this weirdo? Like, I don't feel that way now. I think I'm awesome. But when you're with someone who's so close to perfect, who's so amazing, it can feel, you know, like intimidating. Like, do I match this energy? And he's made me a much better person. He's made me so much more calm, though I'm still crazy. But he calms me in ways that I really always needed. I always dreamed of Fred. Like, I always dreamed of him my whole life, since I was a little kid and saw my parents fighting. And, like, fun fact, my dad doesn't speak English, my mom doesn't speak Spanish. They've been together for 35 years. Ask me how, I don't know. So watching them for years, like, on the struggle bus, just not knowing how to communicate, and like literally watching them andar bien, they're talking good, and then all of a sudden they're fighting. It's like, wait, you're fighting over nonsense. Like, you misunderstood her. That's all that happened here. Rewind, because you just missed it. And so, like, seeing that made me like, I need a best friend. I need someone I can talk to about anything. I need someone who accepts me fully. I need someone who pushes me to be better. I need someone who I push to be better. You know, like, Freddie was kind of like the man on the moon when I met him, and now he is a grown, strong, responsible, athletic, fun. He was always fun, but like just the greatest, you know, like the GOAT. The
There
GOAT.
you go.
And so 12 years being with someone like that is impeccable.
I like that. The perfection and the greatest.
Yeah, I won't say he's perfect, but he's definitely the GOAT. He's the greatest, you know, he's the greatest. Like there's no I can't say enough about that man.
That's awesome. What are your thoughts, Kevin? Because you're all, you were the GOAT and then the perfect man. Like, I don't know. I can't match either or, you guys.
I love that. That's so beautiful. I'm so happy you guys have like such like amazing 12 years together. That's inspiring to like hear around. Like in my culture, they don't really talk about like marriage too much, or if they did talk about marriage, they just like not in my culture, like the family, like
Family.
Yeah. Nucleus.
Yeah. Right? They want to talk about marriage like that, you know?
Yeah.
It's like so hard to be like, oh, like how, like always want a good vision of it, and then when they bring in the bad vision of it, it's like, ah.
Yeah.
You right now brought in that amazing vision. It's like, oh wow, that's what it's like. That's beautiful. Like even to the ups and downs.
Yeah, and we've had our downs, you know, like we've struggled. We've gone through some things. Like we had a whole house burned down with our pets inside. Like while we were away on our honeymoon. That's why we did the vow renewal.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. But like we've had some tragedies. We've had like so many things happen to us. That's where the whole cat rescue came from. Was I was so sad about that I had to turn it into something productive, or I was going to get lost forever. Like, and Fred was there, like picking me up and putting me into the shower because I wouldn't wash myself. You know, like I always remember that. Like we moved around a lot, where we were like this wanderlust kids, where we didn't know what we were going to do with our lives. We figured it out. We followed our dreams. We're doing everything we've always wanted to do, even from kids. You know, like if I as a kid knew I was going to be here, I would have never cried a day in my life.
Oh, that's awesome.
Beautiful.
That's awesome. And guys, keep in mind that when Sierra is back, we're going to talk about the cat rescue mission.
Yes.
The events she does.
Yes.
And we definitely going to touch more about that delicate subject about, how allergies affect women. We have to really...
I think that's a whole one by itself.
Exactly. I mean, as a matter of fact, what I'll try to do is get an expert in that.
Yeah, that would be great.
So that way the conversation can flow between you two guys
and maybe even someone else that also has an allergy to these things, or and I'd also love to touch on in that episode, like, why did I choose to stop eating meat? Now I eat fish. I caved. But I got so tired of like being out with family and friends and not like having fries. Like I was like, all right. But like just there's a lot of things that like when it comes to all of that, like the conspiracy of the food we consume. I'd love to talk about that.
Definitely.
And then the events and I manage property too, and we do a lot.
Oh, we got too much to talk about.
I do a lot.
We're gonna have like 5 to 10 chapters, so stay tuned.
I think 2 more, I'll be alright.
You're too cool to just do 2. You and Freddie are amazing. I don't know, Kevin, what you have 100%. To say about her.
Yeah, you're awesome. You're awesome. You and Freddie are amazing. I can't wait to have you back on for 5, 10, 11, 12.
Oh, thanks. Well, you know what we'll be back is we're going to collaborate on the Urban Renaissance Project. And you guys will be able to see all the cool local artists and performers of the community here nearby, because we've got so much talent in this area, and I'd love to bring more light to them.
Cool, so stay tuned. She will be back, and she's going to be back with a vengeance, remember that. And we got more cool things to talk about, so don't miss the next episode of the Ethics Guild podcast. Thank you for being with us, and we see you next time.
Yeah.
I'm trying to coexist.